Hey everybody, I thought it would be interesting if I talked a little bit about a design methodology which I learned recently called forward design. So, forward design is a design method in which you approach designing the puzzle by putting in step by step the information that a player would need to solve the puzzle. So, you're kind of designing each deduction as you go uh, from the standpoint of the direction that the player would be solving the puzzle. It's a little bit of a weird way to put it. It's hard for me to exactly explain in a concise way what it means. So that's kind of the point of this video, is to design a puzzle to show you how that works. So what I've decided to use for the type of puzzle is a witness puzzle using two of the basic mechanics in the witness: the hexagons and the black and white dots. The reason I chose to use this is because it's a little bit more fun than using like Sudoku or something, which everybody would already know the rules for. But it's not too hard to explain the rules, and it's not a huge spoiler for the witness for you need to explain those rules. And it's something that many people are probably already familiar with. So, if you're not familiar with the witness at all, the basics of the witness are that you're drawing a line through a maze of some kind from start to end. This is a website called The Windmill, which is an online tool that lets you design puzzles in the style of the puzzles in the witness. There's also possibilities for puzzles in the witness that involve things on the panel, symbols on the panel in the case of like these hexagons, or black and white dots. There can be different symbols on the panel. So in the case of these two symbols, the hexagons mean that you need to draw a line that goes through every one of the hexagons. And the black and white dots mean that you need to draw a line which separates the black and white dots. So in this case, that would be a solution that would work for there. So if let's make a smaller grid just to kind of exemplify those two things, just in case you're unaware of what those mechanics are. So hexagons mean that you have to draw a line through all the hexagons. Oops. You have to draw a line through all the hexagons, and black and white dots mean you have to separate the two colors. So if we had these hexagons, you would have to draw this line, for instance, or really any line that goes through those hexagons. And if you had some black and white dots, let's just erase everything. If you had some black and white dots, let's do it this way. I'll just draw a line, and then I will put some dots down so that you can see. You'd have to have like black dots on that side of the line and white dots on this side of the line, or vice versa. So this would be, for example, the top-down method of designing a puzzle, right? Which would be that we start with the solution and then we place down some things to constrain that, like, oh, well, we want to have some things along that line, and then you would, by virtue of all the stuff that we placed down, you would have to draw that line, right? That's not really the method that we're approaching things from here today. Instead, we're going to do a different approach. So there still can be some arbitrary things, but we're not specifying what the exact solution is going to be to begin with. I'm going to make a little bit of a smaller panel than this. Let's go like 6 by 6. That might be okay. Yeah. So the thing that I want to do for this panel, maybe I'll do a 5 by 5 just to make it smaller. It might be too small, but we'll start with that. Is I want to, there's always something that you kind of have to pick arbitrarily. And the idea that I wanted to have is I wanted to have a panel with 4 starts and 4 exits. And you have to deduce which is the start. There's only one start that will work, and there's only one exit that will work. The reason I picked that is because that's essentially how this vault door works. I think there's 3 exits here. Um, um, and so it's something that you can kind of look at this puzzle in the actual game and see how it uses some of the same ideas. So the main question that the player is wanting to ask at this point is, how do I know which of these start points do I pick? Because you can pick any of them. And how do I know which exit to go to? Because you could go to any of them. So essentially that means that I need to place down some things that will exclude all exits except for one and exclude all start points except for one. So a real easy thing that you might do is put down 2 hexagons next to one of the start points. That would mean that if you picked that start point, that you wouldn't be able to hit both of those hexagons because you can't draw your line over itself, right? So that means we have to start somewhere else. Another easy thing to do would be to place down black and white dots on both sides of that line, because that means that in a similar fashion, if we started there, we wouldn't be able to separate the black from the white dots because we can't form a loop around that start point. So we'd have to start somewhere else. Now we come into another aspect of forwards design, which is there's different difficulties of deductions that you could have a player make. Like, these are 2 fairly easy deductions to make. We know we can't pick those start points pretty quickly. Even if we were just experimenting by starting there, we can pretty quickly learn that we can't start there. But perhaps we could make a somewhat more complex deduction, in that this is slightly more complex, but not that more complex, in that we're going to say that we can't go around, we'd have to go around here, and we're not going to end there. So I'm trying to think of, actually, that's not a great way to do it. Yeah, it's not a great way to do that. Well, let's just add something to where we have to pick this point, and we won't do something that's crazy. But a fairly easy deduction would be, again, something like this, where there's no good way to separate those if we start here, whereas it's fairly easy if you start somewhere else to separate those, right? So, a pretty simple solution here would either be this or this. So now you would add, we know that we need to start here based on the fact that we can't really separate the white and the black here effectively, and we can't really do that here, and we can't really do this here. So we know this is the start point. So we could allow it, you could add stuff at this point that would force you to deduce that a certain endpoint is the exit. Now, like, you could very easily add just something that, let's say you only had one endpoint, it would be pretty obvious. But if we want to add things that force you to go to that endpoint, then it becomes a little more complex, but not too difficult. So let's say I'm trying to check ahead of time whether there's any endpoints that we can rule out, and it doesn't really look like it. Looks like we can pretty much pick any endpoint that we want. Can we go from there to there is one of the questions that I'm having. I think we can. I think we can even end here. So let's say we want you to end here, just because it's kind of neat to go around and come back here. So that means I need to preclude ending here and ending here. An easy way to do at least one of them would be somewhat similar to what we did here, in that if I put this and this here around that corner, then you wouldn't be able to end there because you have to go around it, right? It's not really immediately specified which way we go around it, but we have to go around it, right? And if we want to preclude this exit, so because I'm pretty sure at this point you could solve it both ways. Like you can solve that like this, and oops. Can we solve that is the question. Can we separate? Yes, because we can do like this. So a lot of this design method involves like making these types of deductions, right? Or making these, you're sort of trying to solve it. But if we wanted to go fully deductive, then we would say start here, and then we would immediately have this question of, okay, do we go this way, this way, this way, or this way? And I can immediately specify, well, you need to go this way because there's a hexagon there, right? And then we would have a question of, do we go this way, this way, this way, or this way? So you can really make it as top down or bottom up as you want, right? You can start from here and just add things to give you the path that you need to take specifically. Or you can say, well, I want you to end here, and you can go the other way. Either way, you can do that. You can say, I want you to end here. You're going to have a mixture of two things, right? You're going to have a mixture of, I like the idea of you ending back here, or you're going to have a mixture, or you're going to have like, hold on. You're going to have, you just kind of add the things as you go, right? But we did need to rule out the other start points so that you would know where you needed to start. I don't necessarily have to rule out the endpoints at this point, but I've decided that I want this to be the endpoint. I think if you do this might this might immediately make it to where you had to end there, but I might be wrong. Yeah, I guess you can go around like this, so it's not necessarily the case that you have to end there, because you could do this. If I wanted you to end there, I think if I broke this line, then by virtue of that, you would have to end there, right? Because there's no other way, right? So we know we can go this way, and at this point, this is a puzzle that you can do, right? I think you can separate that off. But it's pretty loose, right? It's pretty loose. Hold on, separate that off, and go through there, and then go through there, and then go there, okay. It's pretty loose, I think, because I think we might even be able to end down here. I'm going to try to end down there. No, okay, we have to end up there based on that, okay. So it's pretty loose in that you can go through and say, okay, we have to go here, but can we go here first? No, we can't, okay. So we have to, in terms of designing this way, we still have to experiment a little bit in terms of seeing what we can do and can't do. Can do and can't do. I think there's like a lot of freedom in this area of wiggle room. I could have completely separated off that area, but I'm trying to go through this in a way that's like, you can decide multiple ways that you want to do this. It's pretty common in the witness for puzzles to not be completely deductive and to leave some wiggle room. So in the case of the witness, at this point, this might be a good enough puzzle for a witness puzzle, because there's a lot of slop in it, right? There's a lot of freedom about how you approach things. we have to go this way, and we have to do this because we have to close that off, right? And that's a somewhat harder deduction that requires that we know that this is not going to work because we're not going to be able to close off the blacks here from the white ones here. Because if we go like this, we're immediately in a situation where that's going to end up in an area with both of those, right? So you're kind of stuck, right? So we really don't even have to specify anything particular you can do here because you'll have to deduce that you have to do that and close that off. So it would be really at this point where you're deciding, like, are you going to go up? Because you could like go up here and then down, I believe. Yeah, so you could go up and down and then around here. Well, okay, no, because then that's going to end up in that area. So you could go like this. Anyway, there's a decent amount of wiggle room, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And if you wanted to make it fully deductive, you would be absolutely certain that at every single moment going through the puzzle that there's only one thing you can do. And there's a few different ways you could do that. One thing would be, the most heavy-handed way would be like that you just did like this, right? And then you would know, okay, well, you have to follow that line, right? So we don't want to do that. But I believe we've determined that you have to go through here and around here. So then at that point, the question is, do you keep going through here or do you go up? So if I, for instance, put a white here, then you would know going through like this that we have to go up because we're going to end up grouping white and black together. So we have to separate that off. Now we have the freedom to go this way or this way. And I could add something to force you to go one way or the other. Let's just add a hexagon there just to force you to go one way or the other. So then when you go through here, you have to go here. And we could go here or here. I'm not really sure what we would do. I guess let's put another white dot here. So that then you have to go through there. So you'd have to go here, 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 here. And then we know we have to keep that separated. If I put a black dot on it right here, then we would have to go through those to separate that. So we would immediately know that we have to go that way. Then at this point, we could go here or we could go here. So if I want to force you to go one way or the other, I guess I would go like, I would put a white here. So we'd have to separate that and that. So you would know, okay, we got to go here, 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 here. Then at this point, I think based on the fact that we are going to have to end here, we actually can probably deduce the rest of the puzzle from that. In that we have to go here and separate that off. And we can't do this because then we'd be blocked off, so we have to keep going this way. I think we can do either this or this. So there's like one other thing here that you have the freedom to do, right? Which is either go that way or that way. If I added this, that would be a somewhat less obvious deduction than the other. So you would go, so here would be our path through this, and we have to separate black and white. Oh, okay, so here we've got an issue that we can't actually separate those because I went down in this corner. So that's a problem. So I've made this actually impossible now, I think. I'm trying to think of how to actually do this in a better way. well, maybe it's not impossible, but I think that it is. Because I was thinking that you would go like this, and then you'd be able to separate that from that. But the issue is that there's a white right here that won't work. That's in this area. So I'm going to have to remove that white and think about if there's something else I can do here that's a little bit better. So we know we have to go like this. We don't know that we have to go, well, I guess we do. We don't know whether we have to go like this or like what, right? I guess we do have to separate that just based on what happens later. But this can go like that or whatever. So I'm trying to think. I guess it would be better to put a black here, right? And then you would have the ability to deduce that you can do, that you need to do this. And separate those off, and then you can go through here. We're still got wiggle room here, so I could either put a hexagon or I could put like a white dot somewhere, or I could put a black dot here, and then you would have to go around that black dot. I don't know, I kind of like the white dot idea. Anyway, this is a little time consuming because I have to continue drawing this line every time, but so here I'm at a point where I have to do that and have to do that. Now I can either go this way or this way. If I put a white dot here, then I would have to go around it, and then that would be a fully specified solution. Okay. So the term specified means, is it fully deduced? Is this the only possible solution, right? So this is a pretty complicated puzzle. It's hard for me to say necessarily whether it's a good puzzle, but at this point we've fully specified this puzzle to where you can totally deduce exactly the line you have to do, because unless I've totally messed up, which I'm sure if I did, that you'll point it out in the comments, but if I didn't mess up, then we specified that this is the start, this is the end, and if this is the start, we have to go here. Oh yeah, we have to do this because we have to separate those whites there, right? Because otherwise you end up in a situation where you've left that open. So that's not the greatest thing because it's a pretty big bifurcation, and that's going to make it a little bit hard. It's a bifurcation in that you could spend a while potentially trying to solve this the other way. I guess you can't really because of this being closed off. Yeah, I guess you would pretty quickly, if you went this way, you would be pretty hard pressed to actually do it. So anyway, so there's that. Okay. So that's, as far as I can tell, the only solution for this puzzle. And it's not necessary that this is a great puzzle, but you know, it's a puzzle that fits the idea of what we're trying to express here. And like I said, in the case of The Witness, a lot of the puzzles in the game, including this, have a lot of slop in them. There's a lot of parts of the puzzle where it kind of doesn't really matter what you do, mostly because The Witness is not really about making fully specified hard deductive puzzles, and is more about kind of deductive light puzzling, I guess. It's more about like figuring out what the thing means. So in this case, it's more like the point of this puzzle is, can you figure out what these symbols mean and then come back here and do this puzzle. It's not meant to be something that you have to fully deduce. But anyway, so we've designed a puzzle using the forwards design method. I don't know if that's a great explanation of how it works, but it kind of seems like the best thing to do is to kind of just talk through my thought process as I design a puzzle using that method, so that you can understand, you know, what are the questions that I'm asking, What are the types of things that you need to be thinking about if you want to design puzzles using this method. The nice thing about doing things with this approach is that you end up with a puzzle that has a specific solution. It has a solution path through it, in the sense that it is actually possible to deduce what you need to do at each point. And there's not guessing involved necessarily. And it's not random, and it's probably better, this method of designing puzzles, even if this particular puzzle is not good. If I were to, say, design like 5 puzzles using this method, the odds that those puzzles on average are going to be better than puzzles that were designed using, say, either a top-down approach, certainly, or a like random experimental approach where you just throw things on the board and see if you can solve it. The odds are pretty higher that it's going to be good, and the quality is really dependent on, what are those deductions that you're placing in it. So in this case, it might not need to be a puzzle that's this big to fit each of these types of deductions into a single puzzle, but it does work, and it's an okay puzzle to explain the idea. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, it doesn't necessarily, you won't necessarily always be designing the best puzzles. The quality of the puzzle is primarily going to depend on the quality of the types of deductions that are required to solve it, like the type of thinking. That's sort of where the idea of that puzzle would come in, is like, what is the type of thinking that you're doing, or what does even the puzzle represent? Because you might want to design a puzzle that was expressing some high-level idea in terms of the structure of it. In this case, like I said, the high-level idea was 4 start points, 4 end points, and there's only 1 start point that works and 1 end point that works. So you're going to take some kind of high-level idea. It might be that high-level idea is, there's a cluster here, or the high-level idea might be that if we're continuing to design witness puzzles, the high level idea might be that the start point is always in the center, right? I actually played a set of puzzles that was pretty decent that was based on that idea. Anyway, I feel like I'm a little bit rambling right now, and maybe I've not got much else to add on this point, but obviously the witness has many other symbols that you could use to expand a puzzle and add different types of deductions in there. But I figured that these basic rules were a good way to just get the point across of what this type of puzzle designing is, with a set of mechanics that some people might be familiar with, or that even if you're not, they're fairly easy to understand, and not a huge spoiler for the witness. So anyway, hopefully this was useful, and thanks for watching. And I hope to see you around on the internet. Have a good one. Bye-bye.